Hello and welcome to another episode of Tunze Tech Tips. So today I want to go through the Care Magnet range, service, available parts, and just how to get the most out of your Care Magnet and what model to choose. So to start off with, the base model of the range is the Care Magnet Pico. This unit is different from all the others in that it does not have replaceable blades and it is ultrasonically welded while the others are potted. Potting is filling the magnet with polyurethane resin. Everything is completely coated. That's the same standard that's used on pumps and electrical equipment. It's generally a much higher standard of waterproofing. Ultrasonic welding works well on small things. There's always a chance that the ultrasonic weld is imperfect, but in this case, it's a very small magnet system, and we make every effort to make sure they're completely sealed. This is made for small tanks under 10 gallons. So on this unit, maintenance is very simple. The only spare part available is a replacement felt pad. That's part 0220.067. And if the blades get dull, you simply sharpen them with sandpaper, or you could use a small fine file. But you'll be able to sharpen them, maybe 4 or 5 times. It's not something you would need to terribly often, but they will wear out. This is essentially a product that's good for 4 or 5 years, and then it needs to be replaced. It's not a lifetime product. Then moving up, we have the Care Magnet Nano. So the Nano model is different from the other three after this in that it is a smaller footprint. It's made this way specifically so that you can maneuver it in a small aquarium. It only has the small blades attached. I do want to mention though that this does not preclude you from adding the Care Booster, which makes the other models float. You can buy the Care Booster as an accessory, and you can cut it to fit. We actually have a video on that I'll link below. There are several hacks for this model magnet. So you could add a modified float if you wanted it to float. You can add the blade set 0220.154 if you want a wider blade that allows you to attach the stainless steel blade. But we provide this out of the box for small aquariums, and as a result, we're trying to keep the footprint as small as possible so you can get around corners and get between tight spaces. But this would be the next model up. The felt for this is 0220.157. This is the only model that now uses this size felt. You get a 2-pack, and again, these spare parts, they're going to be available through Bulk Resupply, Aqua Cave, Saltwater Aquarium, Premium Aquatics, pretty much all the regular dealers. If you have a local fish store that stocks our products, they most likely have these parts as well. You can order them on tunze.com. Okay, so moving on, we've got the regular Care Magnet series, which starts with the long, moves up to the strong and strong plus. All that varies between these three models of magnets, they're the same basic footprint, same basic platform, it's just the strength of the magnets inside. Long is good for up to 1/2 inch glass, strong is good for up to 3/4 inch glass, strong plus is good for up to 1 inch glass. As a general rule, I would oversize slightly, so if you have 1/2 inch, you might consider getting a strong. If you've got 3/4 inch, you might consider getting a strong plus. You don't want to grossly oversize. That's a lot more pressure on the blades, a lot more likely to result in broken blades, broken parts. They do wear out prematurely. We primarily run into gross oversizing with maintenance companies because a lot of times they'll just buy a strong plus to clean all their accounts. And then you get down to something with a 1/4 inch pane and you put a strong plus on it. That can not only be dangerous if they slam together suddenly for risk of breaking the glass, but you can also bend or break the blades. You can break the attachment point. So stay within reason, but having a little bit stronger means more pressure on the blade, which does mean that the blades are going to wear out faster, but it does mean that you're going to get more cleaning power and less passes. So when we get our magnet, a couple of things that are important. In the top of the box, you do have your stainless steel blade and one replacement set of blades. We have our outside magnet, and our outside magnet can be outfitted with different end caps. That's just kind of a color thing. You know, if you remember back, at least when I was younger, there were shoes like kangaroos. I think it was kangaroos that you could change the little triangles on the side. Kind of a similar concept, lets you customize it to suit the environment of your aquarium, your fish room, whatever you may want to do. And if you were to lose those or decide later on you wanted a color that you threw away, those are available, part 0222.152. Then we've got our inside magnet half. And this has our blades on it. Now, just of note, both magnets are actually identical. All that changes is the end cap and the felt pad on the front. Something I do want to discuss here, as delivered, this is only safe for glass. This is mentioned in the manual, but a lot of us don't read the manuals and it can have consequences. So if we're using this on acrylic, these feet that come across that hold on the Care Booster, you can remove these. And you would want to on acrylic, because this plastic, it's unlikely to scratch the acrylic, but it will mar the acrylic. You'll get streaks of this plastic coming off on acrylic. That won't happen on glass. On the inside, this wide blade is not suitable for acrylic. To get this width of blade without a high risk of it warping, there's fiberglass reinforcement in this blade. So over time, it'll create fine scuffing on acrylic. So you want to switch that blade out for the small blade. Now, these are a fully serviceable product. You can change the blades. Since I think it was roughly 2021, when we added the Care Booster, we added these rivets to further secure the blade. These come with spare blades. So if you order, probably a good time now to go through the blade sets that are available. 0220.153 is this 86 millimeter blade. It's a pack of two. You'll get two blades and two rivets in the box. 0220.156 is the 45 millimeter blade. You get two blades and two rivets in the box. Now here's the one that most people are looking for and need. This is 220.154. So this is the wide plastic blade with the clip that holds the stainless steel blade on, and the one stainless steel blade. So one thing I want to point out here, we see a lot of comments about how this doesn't attach securely. The reason we sell those as a set is normally if this is not clipping securely, this blade is warped or deflected in some way to where this does not lock in entirely. And some of you may have a very old one where this clip is blue. They changed to black also around 2021. The black plastic is a lot stronger and a lot more rigid and clips in much more securely. The blue clip was a much older version. By now, you should have replaced this blade several times over. These blades are generally, even in a light residential use where you just have one tank and you're cleaning your tank maybe once a week, you still need to replace these blades about once a year. In a heavier commercial use, or if you have multiple tanks or your magnet is grossly oversized, you may need to replace these every few months. These are a consumable part. They do wear out and they get dull and they need to be replaced. But if you need the clip and you need that whole end, this is the set you want, 0220.154. So when it comes to the stainless blades, we sell these blades as a separate accessory. So you can get these in a 3-pack or a 20-pack. A little bit about these blades, these are actually made in Solingen, Germany, which is world famous manufacturing headquarters for various surgical tool companies, and they're made out of the famous Solingen stainless steel. So these are fairly inert for your reef tank. These are going to be about the safest blade you can get. Another reason we use stainless steel is generally softer than glass. So that means that the risk of any sort of damage to the glass is extremely low. Further, when these blades are made, they're sharpened and then they're quickly beveled down on the top. So that essentially they get them razor sharp and then flatten the top. The reason for that is that it minimizes the risk that you would damage the silicone on the aquarium. But one thing I want to point out is you actually have 4 edges. So you can flip the blade around, you can flip it over, flip it around again. You can get multiple uses out of one blade. Usually on the stainless blades, after about a month, they're going to get an accumulation of debris and they need to be cleaned or possibly flipped over. Now, if one side gets a ding in it and is no longer straight, you won't get good contact, so then you're going to need to flip it around to the other side. Again, to attach the blade, we pop this clip out. Then we put the stainless blade in place over our 2 rivet holes. And insert the clip. So now we've got a very secure attachment, and generally I would say if your blade is not attaching, you want to replace this entire end and double check that you don't have your magnet so oversized. If you're in a place where your blade is, or your magnet is, rated to a 1/2 inch or 3/8 more than your tank thickness is, that's going to put undue pressure on this and cause it to pop off. A lot of times we see where they slam together and this rivet gets broken. You can replace all these parts, but you have to be careful sizing your magnet to your tank. And then just to walk you through replacing the blades, you'll use a small slotted screwdriver. You'll pry the rivet up. Once you get it started, you can generally get it the rest of the way with your fingernail. So now we've got the rivet out. And if that rivet's undamaged, you can save it and reuse it, and the blade just comes off here. When I see people use these to where they're extremely oversized, I've seen these posts get broken. So that's just stay within reason on oversizing the magnet. These are very strong. We're not one of those manufacturers that says it's good to 1/2 inch and it barely holds on a 1/4. We're pretty accurate on those sizings, and you could definitely use a long on 1/2 inch glass without issue. It's just you'll have fewer passes if you went one size up, but you never want to go more than one size up. And if your tank's 3/8, definitely only get the long. So moving on to some other parts, if you need, there's this clip set. This is the replacement clips for the Care Booster. That's 0220.159. The felt for the outside magnet is 0220.257. The felts do wear out. The usual issue we see with the felts is that if they get wet and they get a lot of salt accumulation in them, they start streaking on your glass. Then on top of that, the felt can get to where it's really matted down. And sometimes if they've been wet for a considerable time, the adhesive breaks down. All these felt strips are self-adhesive. You'll peel off the old one. You want to clean it with some soapy water afterwards. And then you want to maybe wipe it down with some alcohol. I would not use any heavy solvents because that could damage the polyurethane potting. And then just adhere the new one. And one other thing we should cover is how to remove the Care Booster. The important thing to note is that these clips tuck into sort of undercut pockets. And so we want to remove them carefully, prying from both sides. And you need to keep in mind that you are fighting a magnet. So you have a metal screwdriver, it's going to try to take it away. So we start with pry out the one side, and then we carefully pry out the other side. And now we've got the clip out. And this is important for those of you with an acrylic tank, because you will want to remove these on the outside magnet. Here we're removing it on the inside one. You may want to do that if you're working on the in a very tight space. You may want to remove the inside float, but they do come off, and they actually stay quite well without the clips. So you can still use it on the outside magnet with no clips if that would be your preferred for an acrylic tank. And then they just slide right back in. You can see they kind of have a barbell end that fits into a pocket down in there. So, you know, we don't want to just brute force them. Pry gently from both sides. That'll avoid breaking those clips. They're quite tough. This foam, by the way, is actually extremely tough. If you go to the Tunze Aquarium Technic YouTube channel, you can see Felix drive over it with a big truck. Some of you may recognize this foam under your hood. You'll find such foams sound deadening the engine compartment, sound deadening various hoses. It's an extremely tough foam, and it's designed to last a lifetime. Now, I have seen grazing animals, snails, big turbos, urchins graze through this foam slowly. In a case like that, you may need to replace it for cosmetic reasons, but as long as it floats, there's nothing wrong with it. If you have a much older magnet, before 2021, they did not include the Care Booster. You can buy it as an upgrade. But I do want to mention that these are standard now on Long, Strong, and Strong Plus. The 0222 models have the Care Booster included. 0220, which I don't know where you would find one. They haven't been made since 2021. Those would not have the Care Booster. That's the older model. It's going to have the blue clip. So I think from here we should move on to actually showing use of the Care Magnet, and we're going to demo it on my aquarium, the Care Magnet I use, and let's get going. One thing I forgot to mention as far as replacement blades, we talked about the stainless steel blades coming in a 3-pack, that's 0220.155. And for shops and commercial users, there's a 20-pack, 0220.158. So if you're a big industrial user, you're using them for maintenance or for taking care of the aquariums in a big aquarium shop, you might want to consider getting the 20-pack. It's definitely more economical. And I should also mention, while it is possible, you know, I have seen people go to the hardware store. There's similarly sized carbide blade magnets. Keep in mind, carbide steel rusts. While it is extremely sharp, one real danger with carbide steel is it is harder than glass. So you can definitely scratch the glass with carbide steel. And while we're on the topic of scratching glass, so one of the beauties of the Care Magnet, one of the main engineering features was that the only materials, the only part that makes contact with the glass, you can see we've got an arch here. The magnet has no contact with the glass, only the blades. That puts all the pressure on the blades, and additionally, that minimizes the surface area that can pick things up and scratch the glass. Minimizes, does not make it impossible, and that's an important thing to keep in mind. The reason it's not going to be impossible is we always have magnetic materials in our tank, and many of us think, well, no, I don't. But if you've ever used GFO, GFO is just pelletized rust. It will stick to the magnet. It will have sharp grains. If you leave the magnet parked in the tank, which it is waterproof, you can definitely do that. 4Ms, tube worms, other things start growing on the magnets, and then those themselves can scratch the glass. And it's always possible for the small ends of the blades to pick up a piece of gravel or some piece of debris and damage the glass. So it's going to be better than any other magnet cleaner platform that's on the market in terms of minimizing glass scratches, but it's not impossible. And you need to keep that in mind, use common sense, check it before you use it. It's perfectly fine to park it in the tank, but you need to do a once over and make sure, hey, if some tube worms grown on here, did I get some forams? Is there maybe something stuck under the blade? You know, I've seen where you can dive down into the gravel and get a small piece of sand wedged between the clip, where the stainless steel blade clips and the blade. And if you use black sand is a iron-based sand, and it will also stick to the magnets. So these are just things to keep in mind. And for freshwater users, a lot of your freshwater plant substrates are magnetic and will also stick to the magnets. So that's something else to keep in mind. Okay, so we've covered kind of all the dry desk stuff. You know, spare parts, changing blades, repairs you can do, replacing the felt, stuff like that, upgrades and accessories. I want to also cover the practical use of the Care Magnets. So this is my tank. It's evolved over time into a Fowler that wasn't necessarily a personal choice. The Semel artists, which have long been a favorite fish of mine, kind of made the choice for me. They developed a taste for LPS and even pick on some SPS. So softies kind of became the corals that they'll leave alone. The Ritter I also divided numerous times over the last few years. It's made 7 divisions. Almost without exception, when it makes a division, one of them wanders off, gets into a power head, even though the anemone always survives. The flood of stinging cells into the tank has cost me some corals and fish over the years. When I reset up the tank, I set up this more or less rock island specifically for the anemones and for future clones. But moving on to using the Care Magnet, your most efficient and safest use will always be long horizontal passes. That'll tend to minimize the amount of work you have to do, and it will also minimize the risk of picking something up. But you can see that within reason, we can get into the gravel. The blade does not pick up gravel. The exception, as we discussed, if your gravel's magnetic, if you're using fluorite in a plant tank, if you've got black sand, those can be magnetic substrates. They'll stick to the magnet, could cause scratches. If you leave your magnet parked in the tank, which I do, you want to inspect it, make sure there's nothing that's grown on it, tube worms, something calcareous that could scratch the glass. You know, the magnet does float, so if it detaches, you can retrieve it using the floating. You know, of course, the current will carry it away, and you'll have to maneuver the magnet to catch it, but that's an easy way to retrieve it. If you want to jump corners, so we need to move to the corner, orient our magnet sideways, and then move slowly to the other side, and we can always jump corners reliably with that. And the last thing we should cover is, so I'm using the Care Booster Premium. You know, this is to me, it's a very attractive product. If you wanted a wood cover, these are still available. This is the Macassar, which is kind of a dark tropical wood. They come in palisander, which is a reddish colored wood, like a rosewood. And then there's also olive, which looks somewhat like oak. But you know, these are being not produced anymore. If you want one, this would be the time to get it. This was unfortunately one of those products. The analogy I would draw is you design something during the Roaring '20s, and then it was finally ready to launch on the day of the Great Depression, and nobody bought it. And that's kind of what happened here. These are made out of a very interesting wood, and we thought it would be appealing to customers with beautiful wood cabinetry. But the economy kind of nosedived following COVID, and that's when they came out, and it was just kind of a tone deaf product. But what's neat about these is they're made out of ash, which is just plantation grown in Europe, and they're dyed throughout and made to look like this. And there's a lot of CNC manufacturing that goes into it. And something a lot of people aren't aware of is that it couples magnetically, and that's also an expense on these. But it's a very nice product, and one that you might consider getting if having a nice wood cover appeals to you. Last thing I wanted to discuss though was that storing the magnets. So if you do park it in the tank, that's fine. Just be sure to inspect it before you use it. Make sure nothing calcareous has grown on there, or no magnetic materials like GFO, fluorite, etc. have stuck to it, because that can cause scratches. If you remove it from the tank, please keep in mind that a magnet that can hold on 1-inch thick glass is generally going to be a magnet that's capable of lifting 250 pounds. If you can't lift 250 pounds, you're going to have a very hard time separating them. So when you take it off the tank, always make sure that you've got something in the middle to reduce that magnet pull so you can get it apart. I would probably get like a 1/2-inch thick piece of plywood and cut it to just store my magnet and put it away. Block of foam would work well. And always be careful with yourself. A magnet with this strength can do a lot of harm. You know, I've had bad blood blisters. I'm sure you could break a finger with one. You've got to keep in mind these magnets are quite strong. I wanted to thank you all for joining us today, and I apologize for the delay in producing this video. We actually have another channel starting. So they were over here from Germany. If you've looked at all, we have our Tunze Aquarium Technic GmbH channel, which are kind of factory tour videos and visiting aquarists and shops, and kind of more entertaining than what I do, which is pretty much for facts and trying to get information out there for troubleshooting and repair and maintenance. But they're bringing that channel over to America and the English language, and that'll be Tunze Aquarium Technology. And they were just here from Germany. We did about 15 videos going around to hobbyists in Texas and to Reefapalooza, Texas. And you might be on the lookout for that channel, and I hope you'll join us. But thank you again, and I hope you have a great week, and thank you for supporting us.